Hard. So good morning, everybody. My name is Jesse, and I am with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. For those joining us for the first time, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. And we are particularly excited because this is day 3 of our Oceans Week Spectacular, leading up to Saturday's World Oceans Day, always on June 8th. So we've been doing this celebration ever since we founded, and we've got 25 amazing sessions with researchers, scientists from around the world, and from all fields in ocean exploration and science. So thank you guys for being a part. There's our 4th class. I knew they'd join. We've got 4 classes joining us from across North America. So to give them a chance to do a bit of a shout out, we've got Miss Knapp's grade 5s in Freehold, New Jersey. Hi, guys. Hi. We've got Miss Credslow's grade 4s in Marlton, New Jersey. Hi, guys. Go, they're there. Their mic's not unmuting, but they're there and they're excited. We've got Miss Frawley's grade 6s in Sarnia in Ontario. Hi, guys. Everyone's mic's not muting. We're going to figure it out. We got all the fun technical difficulties. It keeps it exciting, I find. And then last but not least, just joining us a second ago, we've got Miss Ern Smith's grade 4s in Stratford, Ontario. Hi, guys. Oh, they're just getting ready. Oh, everyone's in. That's good. Oh, good. Miss Creslow's class, there was my word. Of course, the reason you guys are all here today is for our speaker. So we are joined by Dr. Hilary Moors-Murphy. She is a research scientist with Fisheries and Oceans Canada. She just did our first ever bilingual session with us a month ago, which was spectacular. And she is out of Dartmouth's Bedford Institute of Oceanography, Canada's largest marine research facility. And she studies the chatterboxes of the ocean, the creatures called cetaceans, whales, dolphins, and porpoises that communicate with each other over huge distances with the most amazing sounds. So we're going to learn a little bit more about her work and what she does. Without further ado, thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Moore, and take it away.
Thank you so much. And hello, everyone, and thank you for hanging out with me today. I'm super excited to be here and to talk to you about the research I do with Fisheries and Oceans. So can you all hear me okay?
Yeah, we can. You're great.
Just double checking. As you heard, I'm a research scientist with Fisheries and Oceans Canada, and I am actually a whale scientist. So I brought with me today my trusty sidekick. This is the captain. He likes to come on trips with me. And as part of my job here at Fisheries and Oceans, I help monitor whale species off of Eastern Canada. And my main research actually involves listening to whales. So I monitor whales using passive acoustics. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my research today, and hopefully I'll be able to play some sounds for you as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start sharing my screen. So I think you guys won't be able to see me anymore for a bit, but you will be able to see some pictures and videos. And I'm going to talk to you about the research that I do. Okay, so I am just bringing up my screen and checking that you can see my screen, and you should be able to see a whale tail.
We do, it's great.
Excellent. So I thought I'd start off by telling you a little bit about me. And when I was really young, and I mean really young, like this picture is a picture my mom took when I went on my first whale watching trip. And I was a lot younger than I was today. And this wasn't even taken with a digital camera. It was taken with a film camera. So that was like a really long time ago. But when I was really young, I really loved the ocean, and I especially loved whales. So I decided I wanted to try to study them. So I went to university after I was done high school, and I did a Bachelor of Science majoring in marine biology. And I did that at the University of New Brunswick in St. John. And that's where I met a professor named Dr. Jack Terhune, and he's on this slide here. And he introduced me to the wonderful world of marine mammal sounds. So under his supervision, I actually completed a couple of projects, a master's project, as well as my honors project on seal sounds. And I studied the sounds of harp and Weddell seals, and they make some really cool sounds. But you know, what I was really interested in was whales. So after I was done my master's, I went on to do a PhD or a doctorate degree at Dalhousie University in Halifax, Nova Scotia, under the supervision of Dr. Hal Whitehead. And that's where I spent very many glorious days at sea on board the lab research vessel. which is a 40-foot sailboat called Balena. And Balena is a really special vessel. We used to go out on this boat for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, and we get to study the whales up close and personal. So this was a really great platform to study whales from. I spent most of my PhD studying these fellows, and these whales are called northern bottlenose whales. I know they look like dolphins, but they are not dolphins. These are actually really big animals. They grow to be about 9 or 10 meters in length, and I have some video of them that I'm going to show you in a little bit here. So for my research on northern bottlenose whales, that led me to actually start working with Fisheries and Oceans here in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. And that's where I'm still working today. So what do I do here at DFO, at the Bedford Institute of Oceanography? I study whales off of Nova Scotia. So I don't know if you folks know this, but there are more than 20 different species of marine mammals that occur off eastern Canada. So that's a lot. There's a lot of whales, dolphins, and porpoises in our waters. Just to give you a few examples, this is a video of a North Atlantic right whale. And with only about 411 individuals in the population, North Atlantic right whales are one of the most highly endangered large whale species on Earth. This whale is about 15 meters in length as an adult, so that's just a little bit longer than the average size of a school bus. And it visits waters off Nova Scotia and eastern Canada, mainly every spring, summer, and fall to feed. So are you guys able to see my video okay?
We sure are.
Excellent. We also have a few different, we also have other baleen whale species that occur in our water. So blue whales, which is in the video here, and these are all videos I actually took during my research. These are the largest animals to have ever existed on Earth, growing up to 30 meters in length, and that's roughly the length of 2.5 school buses. The Northwest Atlantic blue whale, found in eastern Canadian waters, there's only a few hundred of them, and they are also considered an endangered species. So these are another migratory species that occur in waters off Nova Scotia, mainly in the spring, summer, and fall. And then we have these whales. These are one of my favorite whale species because I spent so much time studying them during my PhD. And they are northern bottlenose whales, and they're very strange and mysterious whale. And they're found in really deep waters offshore of Nova Scotia. So these whales, like I said, they're large animals. They're 9 to 10 meters in length, and they undergo long, deep dives of over 1,000 meters that can last for more than an hour to feed on deep water squid. These whales are also very curious, and they often come over and check out the boats when we were out studying them. So they get up nice and close, and you get some fantastic video, like these videos here. The bottlenose whale population off of Nova Scotia consists of only about 130 or 140 individuals, and they're also an endangered species. And these animals, they can be found in Nova Scotia waters all throughout the year. And we also have a few different dolphin species that occur in our waters. So many people don't realize that we have dolphins off of Nova Scotia. And this is one of the most commonly occurring species. They're known as common dolphins. And they can occur in large numbers off Nova Scotia and are not considered an at-risk species. They often ride in the waves at the front of the boats as well. So there are a number of other marine mammal species that use our waters either seasonally or throughout the year. And Fisheries and Oceans were responsible for management and protection of these species in Canadian waters. But we actually don't know a whole lot about the distribution and the abundance of these many different species off of Nova Scotia. This is in part due to the fact that visual boat-based studies in the Northwest Atlantic, it can be expensive and kind of difficult. And it's actually not very nice to be out and about in the late fall and winter. So there are just some times of the year that we can't get out there and we can't study the whales. So another way to study when and whales are occurring in our waters is using passive acoustic monitoring. And that just means listening for whales. So whales and dolphins, they use underwater sounds to communicate and to feed. And many of the whales and dolphins off of eastern Canada are vocal species that produce really distinctive underwater sounds. So this means that we can actually tell different species apart by the kind of sounds that they make. And we can potentially learn a lot about when and where the whales and dolphins are occurring in an area, and even potentially what they are doing just by listening for those sounds. So this basic information on when and where whales and dolphins occur throughout the year is needed so that we can better understand their distribution and to assess the potential threats to individuals and populations. So one of the main objectives of my research program is to better understand how whales and dolphins are using our waters throughout the year using passive acoustic monitoring. So underwater sounds made by whales, dolphins, and porpoises, they can be recorded using a hydrophone. And a hydrophone is a microphone that's designed to listen to and record underwater sounds. So it's sort of like a waterproof microphone. And hydrophones come in many different shapes and sizes. They can be handheld or over-the-side hydrophones, like in my little picture here, where you just put the hydrophone over the side of a boat and then you can listen for sounds, or they can be much more complex. So this is a picture of the kind of hydrophones that I use, and they are known as autonomous bottom-mounted acoustic recorders. So they're basically designed to sit on the bottom of the ocean and record sounds for long periods of time. So my hydrophones, which we call autonomous multi-channel acoustic recorders, or AMRs for short, they can go out to record sounds for up to a year at a time. And this is an image of what an AMR looks like when I actually deploy it. So there's basically a set of floats at the top, and that just holds the whole system upright in the water. And then there's a cable, and the AMR is attached to that cable. So this little image in the middle of the diagram, that's supposed to represent my AMR, or my recorder. And then underneath that, there's more floats, and then an acoustic release, and that's attached to an anchor that sits on the bottom of the sea floor. And the anchor that we use are large train wheels. So that's enough weight to make this whole system sink, and it sits on the bottom of the ocean floor. So deployment involves traveling to the location of interest and lowering the mooring over the side of the ship. And when the system is deployed, the anchor sinks to the ocean bottom, holding the whole mooring down. So this is just an example of us deploying an AMR. So the AMR is where my little arrow is pointing. That's the recorder, and that's being deployed over the side of one of our big Coast Guard ships. And this is a video that sort of shows, it's a sped up video. These deployments, they usually take about an hour. Here you can see an AMR just went in the water, and that AMR is actually sitting in a float, and then they're going to also put the floats and the anchor in the water in just a few seconds here. So this is a big operation. This equipment can be really heavy, and it does take a big boat to take these systems out here and do these deployments. You can see my my train wheel is a little weight that they're going to lift up here in a moment. So they're just getting ready to lift that whole system up, and then they put it over in behind the vessel into the water, and then they're going to let it go, and then that will sink to the bottom. So that's sort of how a deployment works, only sped up really, really fast. So that would normally take about 45 minutes, maybe an hour. So at the end of the deployment period, several months to, like I was saying, I record for up to a year now. We have to take the ship back to where I put that system on the ocean bottom. And to retrieve the system, I actually send in an acoustic signal. And the acoustic release on that mooring, it picks up that acoustic signal, and that signal tells it to let go of the anchor weight. So the acoustic release, it releases itself from that train wheel, that big heavy anchor. And then because there's so many floats on that system, they all float right up to the surface. And then we bring that aimer back onto the boat, and then we bring it back to land, and we download all of the data it's collected, all of that acoustic data, and then we can listen to it for the presence of whales. And by listening to the sounds, we can figure out what species occurred in that area and when they occurred there, and maybe even how long they stayed there. So what I wanted to do next is just give you an example of how I actually analyze sounds and how I look at them. So I'm going to bring up a different program now, and this program is called PamLab. And I already have a file open in it, and this file is of some right whale upcalls. And basically what this is this is a picture of sound. So we have a waveform at the top, which tells you how loud a sound is over time. And underneath that, we have a picture that's called a spectrogram. And that shows you not only how loud the sounds are in the yellowish color in this spectrogram, but also it tells you what frequency are. So whether they are low pitch, like a very bassy sound, or really high pitched, like a soprano sound. So now I'm going to play for you a couple of different whale sounds. And when you look at these pictures of sound, when you look at the spectrograms and waveforms, you can see that the sounds look very different from one another. So we're going to give this a try here. I'm going to play some right whale upcalls. So just out of curiosity, could you hear that sound clip?
Could hear a sound, yes. It didn't sound necessarily like a whale, but it was definitely like we heard something.
Okay, so what you'll hear is static, and then you should hear a whoop, and that whoop sound is a right whale. Could you hear it a little bit better that time?
A little bit better, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to keep turning my speaker up here. The next sound that I'm going to play for you is a humpback whale song. And this is one you should recognize a little bit better. More people know what humpback whales sound like. Okay, I'm just going to prep. So I always have to prep these spectrograms a little bit, and then I can play some of these sounds. So we'll do a little clip first to see how well you folks can hear it. So out of curiosity, could you hear those higher pitch sounds?
I can't. I could try and unmute the classes and ask them, but it's sort of, it was silence for a bit and then little tiny bits of noise. I don't think it's coming through the way it's coming through for you, unfortunately.
Okay. No worries. I am going to try one more time. I've pumped up the volume on my speaker here.
Do it. Third time's the charm.
Okay, this will be really loud for me, but hopefully loud enough that you folks can hear it. Any luck that time?
That was better.
Oh, awesome. I also moved my speaker hoping that it would help. So those sounds are humpback whales singing, and I'll play, you can see they start up higher and then they start to get lower on this spectrogram. So I'll play the humpback whale sounds that occurred down here. They're a little bit lower. So in those ones, you should have heard like a down sweeping moan, like ooh.
Yes, a little bit.
Okay, and then I'll play just one more sound for you. So this is what the humpback whale moans and groans look like. I showed you what a picture of the right whale up call looks like, so it looks quite a bit different than these humpback whale calls. So I'll just show you one more sound, something completely different. I'll show you what sperm whale clicks look like. Okay, so you can see I have the humpback whale calls on the left, and then the sperm whale clicks on the right, and those sperm whale clicks, they look very, very different than those humpback whale calls. And you can also, they sound quite different. So we'll try to play this one. So what you should have heard there was a bunch of snapping sounds.
Yeah.
Almost. Yeah, those are sperm whales that are echolocating. They're actually hunting for food. So those are sperm whale echolocation clicks. And they sound completely different than those humpback whale moans or those right whale whooping up calls. So just by listening for sounds and looking for the sounds that occurred on those recordings that I took, that's how we can start to tell when different species are coming into an area and how long they're staying there. So acoustics are a really important way for us to learn about whale presence off of Nova Scotia. And we are learning lots about the different whale species that occur here. We actually are learning more about how long throughout the year we're hearing different species, and we're actually hearing new species that we didn't even know occurred off of Nova Scotia. So it's a pretty neat study, and we're doing lots of listening these days. So with that, I am going to jump back to my video and see if you folks have any questions.
Outstanding. Well, thank you so much, Hilary. Before we dive into questions, and as you're coming out of screen share, we've got quite a few groups watching on YouTube Live, so if you guys want to type in your questions, I'll pass them directly along, so please do that. And with that, as you're coming out, let's dive in. We'll start with Miss Knapp's class. You guys have a question? Come on up.
Go ahead, Anne. Does it take a while for the whale to make noise?
Oh, can you repeat? Yes.
Does it take a while for the whale to make noise?
Yeah.
It depends. So whales, they can make their sounds pretty quickly, just like you or I. Now, whales and dolphins, they make sounds completely different than you or I, because if you can imagine, if you're underwater, you don't really want to open up your mouth to talk, because then a whole bunch of water goes in it. So they make sounds a little bit differently, but they can make sounds pretty easily and pretty quickly. So it doesn't take them very long to produce that sound.
Okay, excellent. Miss Credslow's class, so I have you guys as demuted, so what I think you guys do is if you guys go up to your mic and just demute it on your screen, then you'll be able to ask your question. You know you're good.
I'll mute.
Good. Yep, you're good.
Go ahead. Move out of the way, Emma, so she can get up there and introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Krista, and what is your favorite species to encounter of a whale in person, and why?
Good question.
Ooh, that's a really good question. So I actually have two favorite whale species, and I'll tell you about both. The first one I've already told you about is the northern bottlenose whale, and I like those species because they're very interesting, and like I said, they're very mysterious. So most people don't even know they exist. They're deep water species. They spend most of their time underwater and in really deep water diving to depth. But they're also very curious, and they like to come up and approach boats. They'll stick their head out of the water and they'll check you out. So they're a pretty neat species to study, and they're pretty amazing when you get to see them out at sea. But then my other favorite species, my favorite species when I was growing up, it's a pretty typical one, and that's the killer whale or the orca. So a lot of people love orcas, and orcas are really interesting because they're so smart, and they do a lot of really interesting things that just show how smart they are. So the orca was always my favorite whale growing up.
Awesome. So in fact, it's funny, whenever we get scientists asked what their favorite animal is, they almost never pick one. It's like, I don't think it's ever happened in 300 of these sessions, so thank you.
There's so many cool whales.
There are. They're awesome. All right, Miss Frawley's class, I think you guys are going to need to demute your mic too. It's a little microphone symbol top of your screen, but yeah, come on up and you can ask away. I'll let you know when you're good. You're good.
Are we good?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Hi. So here's a question for our guest today. So when you encounter a whale sound that you haven't, or a seal sound, whatever, that you haven't heard before, how do you identify which foreign whale it is that made those sounds before?
Well, that's a really terrific question. And you know what? It does happen all the time where I hear things that I don't actually know what they are. So, first of all, there's a lot of different things that make sound underwater. Whales and dolphins make sound. Did you know that even fish make sound? And even, like crabs and shrimp, they make sound underwater. So, there's a lot of animals that are making sound. And then, of course, everything we humans do makes sound underwater as well. But sometimes I do encounter some whale sounds, and I don't know exactly what species they are. Sometimes they're too quiet for me to figure out, like if it's a humpback whale or is it a right whale. And in those cases, we just sort of say, well, it's one of the species, but we're not really sure which one, just because it's so quiet, or maybe it's coming from so far away. And then the other thing that happens is sometimes a completely new sound happens. And I actually have a sound that occurs in some of my recordings that I call the mystery sound. And I've sent it to scientists internationally, and they don't know what it is. We think it's some kind of toothed whale, but we actually don't know what species it is. Like, is it a pilot whale, or is it a dolphin, or is it some other whale species? So in those cases, I just keep recording that it's my mystery sound, and hopefully someday someone will actually describe this, maybe get a recording when they actually see the whale at the surface, and then they'll say, oh, that was that species. And then I can go back and say, well, all my mystery sounds are the same, and that's what species it is. So there are a lot of sounds that are occurring that we don't know what they are, but we still are very interested in them, and we still sort of keep track of those different sounds.
Very cool. Well, the new Godzilla movie just came out, so perhaps. Out of curiosity, actually, how many times have you heard this mystery sound?
Oh, this mystery sound is really cool. So it happens on one of my really deep water recorders in an area known as the Gully, which is a submarine canyon off of Nova Scotia. It's a marine protected area, and it's sort of like a whale hotspot. And it occurs pretty regularly throughout the year. So, at least once or twice a month, I've been picking it up. And we're pretty confident it's some kind of toothed whale, and we think maybe it might be pilot whales. We're just not really sure, because no one's ever described that particular call before. So one of the things that helps us is I have these systems that sit on the bottom of the ocean, and they're recording sound, but I can't actually see what's making the sound. So people who are doing studies where they're actually looking at whales and they're recording their sounds at the same time, when they publish those studies and they have the descriptions out there, and they print out or they have prints of those spectrograms, then that helps me match my sounds to sounds people have already described.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much. All right, Miss Davies' class joined us late because I forgot to send them the link, but we appreciate you guys coming in, and let's get everyone's got a question. Okay, for whatever reason, my computer's not letting me demute anyone's microphone. So if you come up to the front and demute it, again, little microphone symbol at the top, we'll be good to go. I'll let you know when you're all set. And I can always come back. It takes a second. Sorry. Usually this all works. Today it's thwarting me. Okay. Miss Davies' class, I'll come back in just a second, guys, and we'll go to Miss Hearn-Smith's class. Let's see if their mic will work. Yeah, so your guys' mic works for whatever reason for me. So Miss Hearn-Smith's class, if you guys have a question, come on up. Oh, okay. Yeah, you're good.
Okay. What is the loudest whale sound that you've heard?
Okay, so I'm actually going to tell you about two different types of whale sounds that are some of the loudest sounds in the ocean. So the first one is a blue whale call. So I was saying before that blue whales are the biggest animal in the ocean. They're actually the biggest animal that ever lived on Earth. And they make one of the loudest sounds that have ever been made by any animal on Earth. And they are a very, very low frequency call, and they are so low in frequency that we can't even really hear them. We just sort of hear like a rumble almost because they're so low. And those sounds are so loud that they have been recorded across entire ocean basins. So those sounds can travel hundreds of kilometers. They're so loud. So that's one of the loudest sounds that an animal makes in the ocean. The other is actually a sperm whale click, which I played an example of for you. So those sperm whale clicks, the sperm whales, when they make those clicks, they make them with a lot of energy in the clicks, and they are one of the loudest, higher frequency animal sounds in the ocean. And if you were right beside a sperm whale, if you were really close to it and it clicked at you, it would almost be like a shotgun blast. It's just so loud. So that's another really, really loud whale sound.
Super cool. All right, let's go to Miss Davies' class. Yeah, you guys got the mic, so come on up and you're good to go.
What's the biggest whale you've ever seen?
The biggest whale I've ever seen are blue whales. So that video that I showed, that's actually a video I took from our research boat, and the whale was so big, it was bigger than our research boat. It was a pretty cool animal.
So you've mentioned that blue whales are the biggest animal ever to exist a few times now. So can you give a sense of scale for the classes? How heavy, how long?
Yeah, so like I was saying, blue whales are about 2.5 school buses. So if you put 2.5 school buses end to end, that's how long a blue whale is. It's, let me think, there's lots of interesting stats out there. Its heart is like the size of a Volkswagen Beetle. They are bigger than even the biggest dinosaurs. Blue whales are longer than a brontosaurus. So they really are the biggest animal that's ever lived on Earth.
Yeah. They so if you look up their longest recorded length ever, it's about 100 feet they can possibly get to, usually quite a bit smaller than that, but still it's a massive animal, and they live as long as us or longer, so like 80, 90
Yes.
years. It's spectacular. I love the heart car thing. I was hoping you were going to say that. All right, guys, let's go through a second round of questions. We'll start again with Miss Knapp's class, whose mic works, so if you guys want to just come on up, you're good to go.
Have you ever heard two different species communicating?
Ooh.
Have I ever heard two different species communicating?
Yeah.
I've certainly heard different species communicating, but what we're not sure of is if there's two different animals calling in the same area, they can certainly, in a lot of cases, hear each other. So they might be communicating using similar sounds, so we know they can hear those different sounds. What we don't know is if they're actually talking to one another. We just know they're making sounds in the same place in the same time.
Just a quick follow-up on that. We've had a few scientists over the last week when we asked at the end, you know, what sort of resources, places you can learn more. And Blue Planet 2, a recent documentary series, probably the best ocean series ever, has pilot whales and dolphins that certainly appear to be talking together, certainly appear to be working together. More research is needed, but it's fantastic footage. So I highly recommend Blue Planet 2 to all the classes. All right, Miss Credslow's class, if you guys have one, come on up, demute your mic, and you're good to go. I'll let you know when you're ready. I can't do it from here, unfortunately. Yeah, there's a few classes that's not letting me. Don't know why. Sorry about that again, guys. Come on up and you're good. Yep. Oh, you should be good. No, it's not. Oh, man. Okay, we're going to come back in just a second because your guys worked before, so it should work again. That's an awesome book. I love it. But we're not hearing you. Okay, we got lots of time. Come back 2 seconds. And Miss Frawley's class, we'll go to you guys for just a second, and then we'll come right back, okay? So Miss Frawley's class, come demute, ask away, and we're good from there.
Hello once again.
Hello.
Hey.
So the microphone that goes under the water, what's that called again? AR?
Hydrophone.
Yeah, hydrophone. Right. So how often do you have to replace your hydrophone?
Ooh, so the hydrophones themselves, they'll work for a very long time. But the one of the things, whoops.
Oh, there we go. Yep, you're good to go. Keep going.
Okay, so what I do is I actually replace those recording.
Can you hear
hydrophones
now?
Yeah, so we just got a class that their mic came on. I've got them half muted. You're good to go, Hilary. Like, don't worry. Keep answering.
Okay.
We're good.
Hi,
Yeah.
I'm Anthony, and I have a question. Did you read a song for a whale?
You hearing more than I'm hearing? I don't know. Let me mute them. You should be good. I don't know. Can you hear me at all, or? No.
Okay, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, you can keep answering. Were you done that
Sorry,
question?
I'm getting questions cutting in, but anyway, the answer to that question is we replace our recording systems once a year in most of the locations. We don't actually have to throw out the hydrophone or anything. We just put a new system down. We bring the old system back, and we sort of clean it all up. And get it all ready to go back out into the water again. And we've been deploying I've had hydrophones in my lab for about 10 years now that are still working. So they work for a really long time. We just replace them every year out in the water.
Cool. Maybe if we get some marine scientists and hydrophone developers together, we can fix Google Hangout audio. Like, we can make it work. Believe in us. Okay. So Miss Credslow's class, you guys were good. We were hearing you, but then I had to mute you again. So come on up, demute, and then we should be good. It was working. Oh dear.
Almost.
Almost. Wants to work. It really does. No, now it's not working for you guys either. Oh dear. Okay. I'll come back. Worst case, you know what? If you can type, oh, you had it. You had it for a second. Sorry to the other classes. I apologize for this. I just want to make sure everyone gets in 2 questions. I'll come back in 2 seconds. Promise. We'll go to Miss Davies' class. And you guys are good to go. It's demuted. Like, we can hear you totally.
Okay. Brian, no. Is that our turn?
Yeah. Yep, Davies' class. Yeah.
Okay. You ready?
Yep, you guys are good whenever you're ready. And you're demuted, like we can hear you.
Has your hydrophone ever been stolen by a whale?
Oh, has my hydrophone ever been stolen by a whale? I have not had a whale carry my hydrophone away yet, but I will say I did have one hydrophone. It was sitting on the bottom of the ocean, and the acoustic release on it decided to not work anymore after it was out for like a year. So that hydrophone is still sitting on the bottom of the ocean because it was in a really deep location. So I did lose a hydrophone, not because of a whale, just because of a technical glitch.
And for shock and awe value, because I've heard this sort of story from other scientists before, how much does a hydrophone cost? How much is the material sitting on the bottom of the ocean, roughly?
Oh, wow. So that one cost $30,000. Unfortunately. Oh, I know. Like, oh, no. Yes.
Someone's going to go swim. Very deep. Get a scuba. All right. Okay. We're going to try Miss Credslow's class with feeling one more time. You guys get it working every single time once I've gone to the next class. It's been hilarious. It's 2 times in a row. We're going to make it work this time. I think you should be good. Like right now, you should be good. In theory. I want it to work, but it's not. At least you're smiling. That's good. If people are happy. Okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to leave you guys unmuted. I'm going to go to Miss Hearn-Smith's class. And if your mic magically starts working, we're going to go straight to you and then come back to Miss Hearn-Smith's class after. Okay, it's ad hoc, it's crazy. We're gonna make it work. Miss Hearn-Smith's class, if you guys have a question, come on up. And you're deep right now, so don't touch anything. You're set.
What's the smallest whale in the world?
Good question.
Ooh, so normally when I talk about whales, I talk about whales, dolphins, and porpoises. Oh, look.
Oh,
Hello?
okay, we'll get back to that question. Miss Kidlow, go.
Okay, well, I'll get back to the smallest. I'll call it the smallest whale, dolphin, or porpoise. Is actually known as the vaquita, and this is a very small porpoise that
Just leave it. Don't nobody talk.
found down off the coast of California, and they're very small, and they're a highly endangered species right now. There's only there's far less than 100 left in that population. So if you want to see an interesting story, then you can Google vaquita, and it's a very sad story about a highly endangered, very, very small porpoise.
And so roughly how small, like how many feet or meters?
I think, I don't know the exact number of the size, but they're only very, very small. Now, the smallest one in our waters off of Canada are the Harbour Porpoise, and they only grow to be about a meter and a half in length. So that's sort of less than how far out I can put my arms.
Awesome. All right, in lieu of a failing final, Mike, what we're going to do, Dr. Moors-Murphy, if you have any last messages of where kids can find out more information about what you do, about what Fisheries and Oceans does, about ocean wildlife in general, tell us. We'd love to hear it.
Well, if you are really interested in marine sounds, one of my favorite ones to find information about marine sounds, including how do whales and dolphins make sounds and what kind of sounds do they make, is the DOSIT's website. So if you Google DOSITS marine mammals, then you'll come up with a whole bunch of links all about whales and dolphins and porpoises and sounds. So that's a really great resource. Yeah, that's the one that I like. There's another one if you really want to hear different whale and dolphin sounds. It's called Moby Sound, MOBY, and then sound. So if you Google that, it takes you to the website. There's all kinds of different underwater sounds on there, including some of the species that I was trying to play for you here, but that's a great resource if you want to go and just download some whale and dolphin sounds and have a listen to them. That's another good website.
Super cool. Well, thank you so much. One last note for the classes too, because it's come up in a few of our sessions this week. Bearded seals. I know they're not a cetacean, they're not a whale or porpoise, but they're the weirdest sound you've ever heard in your life. Bearded seals has come to Earth. On that note, and with huge thanks for taking part today, Hilary, this was marvelous. What we do at the end of every hangout, I'm going to hopefully demute every class's microphone. And if boys and girls, you guys could join me in saying a huge thank you to Dr. Moors-Murphy for joining us today. You should all be demuted in theory. Go for it. Yes, we got one of the mic things to work. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I love your whale, by the way. It's the best whale ever.
He is. He has a little captain's hat. He
does. Awesome. To all our classes, we hope to see you guys again for the rest of the week and beyond. Hilary, that was marvelous. Thanks so much for taking part.
Thank you.